everybody, I'm Brian Enton filling in for Chris Cuomo tonight. We've got some big stories on this Friday of Memorial Day weekend, so let's get started. We're live tonight. Sean Diddy Combs has just been accused by yet another woman of drugging and sexually assaulting her. She is now the sixth woman to come forward and accuse the music mogul of sexual assault. Her name is April Lampros. She was a student in New York City when she says she met Diddy in the mid-90s. Now, Lampros claims that Diddy promised to mentor her about the fashion industry, but soon after they met, she claims that Combs sexually assaulted her on multiple occasions over the course of several years. And in one instance, he allegedly grabbed her in a parking garage and demanded she perform oral sex on him in front of a parking attendant. There was also another instance where he allegedly forced Lampros to take drugs and have sex with his former girlfriend, Kim Porter, in front of him. Now, Lampros also claims that she was told that Diddy recorded them having sex without her consent and even showed that video to multiple people. This is yet another person to come forward. All of this following CNN's release last week of hotel security footage from 2016 showing Diddy beating up his then-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. So will there be more to follow? Is this just the beginning? Are we going to see more and more and more lawsuits? I want to bring in one of Combs' former attorneys, Mark Garagos, and also he was the former attorney of Diddy. Hey, Mark, good to see you. Also, founder of the Shade Room, Angie Wandu. Thank you both for being with us tonight. Angie, I want to start with you. Had you ever heard of April Lampros before? Is this a story that had been sort of circulating in back channels for a while and has just now been made public?
No, I mean, I've never heard of her before. I know that there have been rumors surrounding Diddy for a very long time. I mean, the industry talks and everybody has heard a rumor or two. People are hearing that there are so there have been rumors surrounding his conduct and behavior, but I never heard of her, and I just assumed that there will be more.
Yeah, a lot of people, I think, are thinking that more is going to come out. Have you heard of any other videos, Angie? Anything else that's sort of percolating up?
Yeah, I mean, I have been, contacted by people saying that there are, other videos. And so, obviously it's our job to kind of investigate and look into that. If we can bring light to, any type of abuse, we would, be happy to do so because we don't stand for that. But, only time will tell. I think that Diddy is such a powerful figure. He's been such a powerful celebrity in the way he's been able to influence the media. And so I think that people are afraid to come out against him. But as his power is dismantling, I think people are becoming emboldened to speak up and share their stories.
Mark, some people have been skeptical, saying, okay, now there's more people piling on. Should we really believe these stories, or are they just sort of trying to take advantage of the situation? But Lampros, she's saying that there's video out there, that there was witnesses, this parking attendant was cited in the lawsuit. Do you think that's reason for us to say, okay, this is a believable story?
Look, as somebody who represented Sean for many, many years on many different things, all I'll say is I'm old enough to remember that there used to be the adage, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So, so far what we're talking about is sex and drugs and maybe not rock and roll, number one. Number two, what seems to get lost here is I just sent to you guys a sanctions motion that was filed by Universal Music Group within the last week against the lawyer who's brought several of these lawsuits for filing false and completely baseless allegations. He's had to withdraw part of the lawsuits. Now he's up for sanctions against him. He's been referred to the disciplinary committee. So before everybody gets breathlessly onto this, let's pile on I don't know, for lack of a better term, media lynching of Diddy. I get that Diddy has been in a bunch of unfortunate situations. I get that people love to see somebody, especially, having represented my share of black men accused of things. I'm always a little leery of this kind of rush to jump on top of them and file things. But in this case, I will tell you demonstrably so far, many of these allegations are false. They've already been withdrawn in large part, and the lawyer who brought many of these allegations forward, who you just showed on your screen, is in the crosshairs himself. So I would just caution, let's take a look, take a breath.
Yeah, but Mark, there are a number of other lawsuits, and I think everybody who saw that video with Cassie Ventura, I mean, it almost takes your breath away. And Diddy said, "Oh no, none of this is true," called her out, and then we saw the video for ourselves. So I think it makes the other lawsuits more believable, Mark.
Look, he didn't say it. His lawyer issued a statement at the time it was settled. It's an awful video. You're looking at it, but let's talk about this for a second. This video is in L.A. County. If it was in the statute of limitations, would have been a misdemeanor domestic violence. It's not a RICO action that people have been bandying about. It's not sex trafficking that people have been bandying about. It's a domestic violence case. Unfortunately, at some point, Sean is going to have to, and I think he did in his in the taped release, admit that he has done so, that he has been a batterer. I mean, you can't run away from that. You got to accept the facts. And that's not an excuse. It's I think, an approximation of his behavior, which everybody is universally condemned. But there is a jump to say that you're a batterer and then jump to the point that you're sex trafficking a la Epstein, I think is a bridge too far.
I want to bring in two other guests to join the conversation who have a lot to say about this. CEO of Hollywood Unlocked and friend of Diddy's sons, Jason Lee, joins us live now, and also civil rights attorney Ariva Martin. Jason and Ariva, we appreciate you joining in the conversation. I want to start with you, Jason, because we've now got this additional lawsuit. You're well connected, Jason, in this world. Are you hearing about more videos out there? Do you think this is just the beginning, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that there are other videos that are out there that could drop. I mean, we didn't see the Cassie video coming. And as Mark mentioned, you heard the comments from his lawyer that said to release a statement on his behalf that it basically dismissed everything. And then the video came out. So I agreed with what Mark had said on a previous show that we were on together, where he said each of these cases does have to stand on its own. So the conflation of one, adding it to another and trying to build a story that they're all somehow connected isn't fair. But when you see a video come out after an attorney said that it wasn't true, and then you see a video that's contrary to that statement, and then an apology, and then more to come, it puts us all in a weird space where we're debating in the culture court whether he's guilty or not, when he hasn't had his chance to go to court on the things that he's being charged with. So the other thing I do want to say, Mark put up another point. Tyrone Blackburn is such a discredited, in my opinion, attorney in culture court, because he has been an ambulance chasing attorney that has pursued things that he has masterfully created this big picture with broad strokes that I know for people directly that have not been true. And so when you add his name to the element, now it's like the credibility of everything is questioned. So,
Ariva, we know that there is this federal investigation happening right now behind the scenes, this sex trafficking investigation. Obviously, we saw the raids at Diddy's homes in L.A., in Miami. Do you think, Ariva, that these lawsuits are going to play into that investigation, or do you think they're totally separate and there's a whole nother, investigation going on with a bunch of other cases?
Well, I don't think we know, obviously, what the federal investigation may lead to. We don't know if there's going to be an indictment. We don't know what charges, if any, might be brought. Clearly, if there is some kind of sprawling RICO-type indictment against Sean Combs, it's a possibility that some of these women who have filed these civil lawsuits might be called in a criminal case to testify if the prosecutors are trying to build some, larger case around a pattern and practice of behavior. But we don't know that. But what we do know is that Sean Diddy Combs is an abusive predator. And this conversation is really odd to me because Mark, who's my good friend and I have a lot of respect for, used the term, it's unfortunate. It's not unfortunate. It's downright disgusting. It's downright pathetic. And we know all too often women, particularly Black women, particularly women of color, Latino women, have been discredited when they come forward and tell their stories of being abused. And this video that we saw of Sean Combs, and I disagree with Mark about this being a misdemeanor. I just interviewed a L.A. County veteran prosecutor who said, but for the statute of limitations, this definitely would have been a felony assault case. The efforts that folks engage in to try to cover up and be an apologist for predators, I thought was long gone after the Me Too movement. But there's still folks out there that still want to make excuses for this kind of behavior. And it's really disgusting to me.
Sorry, I don't think I could hear you for a second, Ariva. But Mark, I heard Ariva talking about the video, and I do think when people see that video, it touches them. I mean, it's so awful. How could that just be a misdemeanor? I mean, surely that's a felony. It's violent.
I will tell you, somebody who defends and also brings cases as a plaintiff in LA County, and I have for almost 4 decades. They've got certain protocols in the county DA's office. In the last 4 years, this would have been a DA reject and sent to the city attorney's office as a misdemeanor. I mean, I generally that's what they do. I mean, Ariva, and as she says, I consider her a very good friend and a heck of a lawyer. She is right that it is disgusting, but at the same time, my point isn't to pass judgment on the video. My point is that when we're talking about indicting him for RICO and doing the either Keith Raniere or the R. Kelly kind of playbook, this just doesn't seem to me to be the same factual situation. This does not seem to me so far from what we know to be a RICO action for sex trafficking. So I'm just trying to separate it out here and take a breath. I know we've got this kind of this playbook that the media uses, but a lot of times when you get to court, it's a completely different situation.
There could be a lot we don't know, though. I mean, we've seen the lawsuits, but there's obviously a lot that the feds have, or they wouldn't have stormed into those houses on live TV for the world to see. I want to play something. I thought this was so interesting. A new development. Diddy's son actually wrote what's known as a diss track, sort of taunting the feds. This came after the raids in L.A. and Miami. I want to play this for you and then get your reaction. This is Diddy's son.
Police raid the crib like they think we selling crack, but we out here selling tracks, multi-million-dollar plaques. Knock them walls down like when them Fetty boys ran in both our cribs. Too bad they ain't know we bought the one next door, cause that's the one they miss.
Angie, what do you make of this? I mean, the fact that his son is sort of mocking the feds, and they're obviously in a lot of trouble right now, doesn't seem like a good idea. Is no one telling this kid, like, hey, like, take a step back for a minute?
Well, I mean, I think that's his father. So, obviously he's going to believe, what his father is saying. His father was denying a lot of the allegations. I wouldn't mess with the feds, but I do have to come back to Mark. And the reason why I have to come back to Mark is because, I do want to point out the fact that in Cassie's lawsuit, she did make allegations of sex trafficking. Okay. So it wasn't just abuse, but it was also sex trafficking. And the video does validate and give her credibility to one of the claims that she did make. So this isn't just, a misdemeanor abuse, that we're talking about here. If we consider Cassie a credible person, and if we consider her claims credible, which we have credibility now with one of the videos showing that one of her claims was true, then we also have to consider some of the other allegations that she made, which was sex trafficking, which was, that she was drugged, which was that, there was, cooperation with people who worked with him. And so I definitely feel like we kind of have to bring light to that again, because even if we throw out all of the other lawsuits, let's focus on what Cassie has alleged, who was with him for a significant amount of time. So I just wanted to, bring that back to the forefront.
Yeah, and the video backed up her story. And a lot of people didn't believe her and believe Diddy. And then that video came out years later and proved that she was telling the truth. But back to the son, Jason, you know Diddy's son. I mean, what is he thinking with this song? Do they just think they're above the law?
Well, let me be very clear. I know a lot of people. These aren't people whose houses I stay at Christmas time, and I'm not on their Christmas card list. I know them very well, and I know them to be good kids. But I also know that they are artists, and the way that people in our culture, in our community, talk about stories in their neighborhoods and their families or whatever is through their art. And if this is how they chose to do it, it's for the market to decide whether it was smart or dumb or whatever, but it's their way of expressing their experiences in their home. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to bash them because they decided to use their art the way that they did. I think on an earlier program, I even said that I was disgusted by the fact that we have to see Diddy's sons in handcuffs as if they were criminals when we haven't seen Ivanka and Don Jr. in handcuffs. And we've seen, their father send people climbing up the Capitol like Spider-Man. So, to me, it's just how the media decides to still tell stories and the narrative building around our culture and people that look like us. That's just really important. The other thing that, back to Reva, and I love her. Hi, Reva. I think my only issue with this whole thing is that we're putting all these cases next to each other without them all standing on their own. And I know that video of Cassie getting beaten, which disgusted all of us on here that's watching, it was troublesome. But we have to also remember, there was a person that said Emmett Till did something. There was a person that said the Central Park Five did something. And until people go through their process, and even when they go through that process, still may not be given justice, I find it very difficult to be used as a person to cast a stone by saying that person did it every single time, even if there is a video showing that they did it one time, So I don't know if that makes sense to you, but it makes sense to me. And I've been asked this question every day. So
yeah, no, it's a fair point. I'm curious, Mark, though, back to this diss track out from Diddy's son and him saying, look, you didn't even search the house next door that we also have. Is that reason enough now for the feds, you think, to go back and actually search that house?
Well, look, is it reason enough for the feds to do it? I'm the biggest cynic in the world when it comes to probable cause for a search warrant. I always joke that all it requires is my client breathing. There is a raging controversy, maybe raging overstates it, over whether you can use lyrics from songs to enter them into evidence in cases. Young Thug is down there defending a case right now that involves that very issue. Here in California, we have had that issue that's gone up to the Court of Appeal as to whether or not you can use rap lyrics. Many a young man has been convicted based on rap lyrics because it kind of, the way the prosecutors use the lyrics is to dehumanize the people who are using the lyrics and to say, listen, this isn't art, this is really a veiled threat. We know that's nonsense, but it appeals to certain demographics. And, I'd be very careful. We're on a very slippery slope in terms of people jumping on this idea that when somebody is expressing themselves artistically, that we're going to then inject that into the criminal justice system.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I guess I was just surprised to hear that coming right after the raid, but we'll see how it plays out. Jason Lee, Angie Wandu, Ariva Martin, Mark Garagos, as always, thank you all so much for coming on. I hope you have a great holiday weekend. We really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, still to come tonight, the video of that little 6-year-old boy, this is so awful, being forced by his father to run on a treadmill over and over again, and then ended up dead just weeks later. One of the most heartbreaking things I think any of us have seen. It's so awful to see that video. Well, the father is now standing trial for his murder, but how did it get to that point? Was it a failure of the system? There is new body cam footage of the dad taken 2 days after his son's death. It's shedding new light on the case. We're going to play that video for you and why the jury isn't being allowed to see it. Why can't they see it? We're going to dive into it next. We've got an update on a story Chris has really stayed on since day one. The horrific case of a New Jersey father, 31-year-old Christopher Greger, charged with murder of his 6-year-old son, Corey. Probably seen this disturbing court TV footage. Greger forcing this little boy to run on a very fast treadmill because he said he was too fat. Even bit his head. He picks him up, he puts him back on even when he falls off. 6-year-old Corey Missiolo died from blunt force trauma and lacerations of the heart and liver, and an autopsy report showed repeated abuse. Corey's mother, Brianna, shared custody of Corey and reported him to New Jersey's Child Welfare Agency more than 100 times over 18 months, but no one did a thing. Child Protective Services allowed Corey to go back to the father who is now standing trial for Corey's murder. It is all just so infuriating. One piece of evidence that will not be admitted is body cam footage of Greger taken just 2 days after Corey's death. Cops actually caught up with him in Tennessee, where he was quick to blame Corey's mom for his death. Take a look at this new video.
He didn't have any bruising on him, and I knew when he got home he was tweaking, and I knew something was wrong with my gut, but I just thought she had him on waiting from everything that he needed sleep. And I should have took him right from the beginning. There's a lot of these things, so it's partially my fault in the sense that if they truly did something, it wouldn't, like, you had to shoot right for the drug addict mother, but he'd still be alive if I never came back from Baltimore to fight for custody. And that's been going through my head this whole drive. She's a special kind of dirtbag.
So why isn't the jury being allowed to see this video? We can see it. Why aren't they letting the jury? I want to bring in former prosecutor Matt Murphy, and criminal trial attorney and NewsNation legal analyst Sarah Azari. Matt and Sarah, it's always nice to see you. Matt, I want to start with you. First of all, what do you make of the body cam video, and why do you think this decision was made for them not to be allowed to show it to the jury? Because apparently they can talk about it, but they just can't actually show the jury this video.
Well, this is something you see a lot, Brian, when you have body cam or other video or audio evidence that captures a whole bunch of other stuff. What you have is you have a lot of communications between the police officers that are on that audio that really, it's essentially hearsay. They're having a whole conversation about some of the investigation, and that type of stuff is an out-of-court statement that would be very confusing for the jury. Plus, you know what? I think that this is one of those things that I don't really think they need it. I think the judge on this, remember, the court's job is to make sure that nothing happens that, if there is a conviction, results in an appeal. So prosecution, in my view, doesn't need this. I watched the testimony of Dr. Feingold. I'm sure Sarah did too. I thought she was really good. The defense has teed up Michael Biden, who's very famous. Oftentimes, and I know Sarah's done a bunch of these as well, when you're talking about homicides involving child abuse, they often boil down to a battle of the experts. And his video, this thing is, it's offensive because he blames the mom. He's presumed innocent here. We all got to remember that. But I don't think they need it. And I would caution them, if I was on this team, to kind of focus on the nitty gritty, the injuries to this kid, the multiple calls of abuse beforehand. And I would, there's a lot of emphasis placed, like when he left, he walked out of the emergency room. People behave and react to death differently. You look at those photos right there on the screen, that's a bite mark on his forehead. And I know, Sarah, that is called petechial hemorrhaging in his eye. That's caused from, you see that often in strangulation cases. Unless there's another sibling, that's caused by abuse. Those are the classic signs. CPS absolutely blew it, in my opinion. I think the judge put way too much faith in their recommendation. I mean, this hearing happened the day before his death. And then on this, we've got this video. You see the father bite him in the head on video. So you don't see cases like this with this much evidence very often. And this will be interesting to see what the defense does.
It's so infuriating when you see the video and when you see those photos and you know that this little boy was failed by his parents, but also failed by the state, that they did not get involved and make sure that he was removed. It makes you so mad and angry. Sarah, lots of questions about whether Gregor will end up testifying in the trial. If you were his lawyer, would you want him to go on the stand?
Yeah, Brian, first of all, just one point. CPS is a joke. I mean, I'm dealing with a very similar situation. The child is luckily alive right now, but a very abusive mother, and CPS gets it wrong. Dependency courts get it wrong. And so it's unfortunate to see that they were really complicit in whatever happened to this child. Whether he'll take the stand, I think he should take the stand. I think I consider myself a little more fearless when it comes to advising a client to take the stand, but really it boils down to, of course, it's their choice, whether we need to humanize them and whether they need to explain things. He needs both. He's been painted as an abusive monster father, and he needs to try to at least attempt to show a different side of himself to this jury. He also needs a lot of explaining. I mean, the driving is like, I agree with Matt. It's a wash. It's a nothing burger. But to me, leaving your lifeless child at the hospital, I don't care if that condition is reversible. It looks really bad. Ultimately, there's some parents on this jury. You don't just drop the kid off and walk away nonchalantly. The online searches are bad because to me, online searches are about what and when. The what and when here in these searches are terrible. So he needs to explain. Maybe he's going to say, I've been framed by this drug addicted mother so many times. She's called CPS so many times to try to frame me. And I was concerned that I'm going to be a suspect in a murder case. So he needs to explain that. Maybe he also needs to explain the soiled clothing, although I think any home with a child, it's expected, especially if the defense is going to come and say that he was sick, that it wasn't blunt force trauma, that it was some infection or pneumonia. Okay, it's expected that there might be soiled clothing. So nonetheless, there is explaining to do, and unfortunately, he's the only one that could introduce those facts. So I would put him on the stand. That's despite the bad call with his mother from jail.
Yeah, you mentioned he had this whole situation with the mom where he apparently called his mom about her testimony and said, look, don't say this, don't say that, tried to coach her. That could now come in, which is interesting. And you mentioned the online searches. He searched, can your phone be tracked in airplane mode? And can my car be tracked, which he certainly needs to explain. So we'll see whether or not he takes the stand, and we'll see whether or not could those workers be criminally charged, because it's just infuriating. 100 calls, this little boy's life. I mean, it could have been saved. Matt Murphy and Sarah Azari, thank you both for coming on. We appreciate it, and we hope you have a great weekend.
You too.
Thank you so much, Brian.
Okay, still to come tonight, 5 Americans have been arrested in Turks and Caicos for carrying in ammunition since February. One of those Americans was just released today, finally on his way home, but there's a grandma from Orlando, Florida, the only woman of the group. She is still there. She's facing 12 years in prison. What does she think her fate will be? She is going to join us live. That's coming up after the break. Americans have been arrested in Turks and Caicos since February after ammunition was found in their luggage. Earlier today, one of the Americans arrested, his name is Brian Hagerich. He was released. He's now finally flying home to Pennsylvania. He's on that flight right now. But there's a grandmother from Florida. Her name is Sharita Greer, and she's still being detained. She's unable to return home to her family. She's stuck in the Turks and Caicos. Greer was treated to a Mother's Day surprise in Turks and Caicos by her daughters. Supposed to be a great trip. But upon entering the island, airport security found 2 bullets under a flap in her bag during screening. Greer was arrested and said she spent several nights chained to a chair in the jailhouse because they had no holding cell for women. Greer now faces a minimum sentence of 12 years. It's all unbelievable. Sharita Greer joins me now live from the Airbnb she is being housed in Turks and Caicos. Sharita, I am so sorry for the situation that you are in right now. It's really unbelievable. How did a lot of people are saying this is weird. Why does this keep happening in Turks and Caicos? Do you know how these bullets ended up in your bag?
Only thing that I could recall of I have 5 grandkids, and sometimes they come stay on the weekends with me. So That duffel bag is what I put my ammunition and my gun in and lock it up and put it in the top of my closet when they're over there. So the only thing that I can imagine happen is once I put it in the top of my closet, 2 of the rounds had to fall out of the box up under the flap in the bag. And I knew nothing about it. I couldn't see them. I couldn't hear them in there or anything like that. It was impossible for me to even know that they had fell out of the box.
Another strange thing is in all these situations, I was just sitting here thinking about this, I guess TSA in America never noticed any of these bullets because the bags have to go through our TSA before you get on the plane.
Correct. My bag was flagged in Orlando. They confiscated a bottle of perfume and a bottle of lotion and tossed it in the trash. But they didn't detect no bullets or anything.
Very, very strange. Okay, so you spent a week in jail before posting jail, apparently chained to a chair. What was that like?
I spent 3 nights in jail.
3 nights, okay. Bad enough, though. I mean, what was it like in there?
Awful. I was scared. I never been locked up before, so I was very scared. I was cold. I didn't know what to think. I was all over the place. I was just a nightmare. To sum it up, a nightmare.
I can't imagine. I mean, you try to go on this Mother's Day trip with your daughters and you end up chained to a chair in jail. And this is a place where Americans go on vacation. I've got a friend there right now. People probably need to start thinking twice about that. There was good news for Brian Higerich, the news today, that he only has to pay a fine. He's now flying home. You've actually been staying with him, his family. Everybody's kind of grouped together trying to get through this. Does this give you hope that, when you have your court date, that there's going to be a similar outcome?
Yes, it gives me hope, a lot of hope. Yes, it does. It really does.
Are they telling you? I mean, is this what you think will happen, or is it possible you might actually have to face a jail sentence? Have they given you any indication? Because I know there was a delegation from America. They are trying to do some negotiating just a couple of days ago.
Well, I'm just gonna continue to stay in prayer. That's just all around the table, because I don't know what may happen, but all of our cases are similar. So, I really don't know. I really don't know. But I'm praying for the best.
We'll all hope for the best. A lot of people are praying for you, Sharita. We'll continue to cover the story, and we'll hope that you get a similar outcome as Brian and that you're able to get home to your family. Sharita Greer, thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay, still to come, we have all heard of drugs like Ozempic. They're great for weight loss, they say. But now there is a new study that shows that these drugs can be saving lives in a whole different way. We've got a doctor in the house going to explain it. Are these drugs actually good? Should we be worried? He joins us next. All right, we now know drugs like Ozempic have changed the weight loss game. It's easy to forget that they were originally actually meant to treat diabetes. But now we're learning they can be saving lives in a whole new way. There was a new 3-year study, apparently shows a similar class of drugs called semaglutides are working wonders for type 2 diabetes patients. The study found patients who get weekly injections show a 24% drop in kidney disease issues. Their risk of death dropped by 20%, and they had 18% fewer heart attacks and heart issues. Dr. Jorge Rodriguez is an internist and gastroenterology specialist who has prescribed these drugs. He joins me live now. Dr. Rodriguez, thank you for being with me. For a while I was thinking, gosh, are these drugs just like too good to be true? All these people are losing weight. It makes it look so easy. But now it makes you wonder, is this actually a wonder drug now that we've got this new study out?
Well, I wouldn't call them wonder drugs, but they definitely are revolutionizing how diabetes is being treated. We need to remember, first of all, that this study was done on diabetics. So we can't extrapolate and say, hey, these results are going to be the same for people that are using Wegovy, Ozempic for weight loss. And one of the major side effects of having diabetes long-term is that it does damage the kidneys. That sugar that's floating around keeps floating and damaging those very small arteries that are the kidneys. So the fact that this medication has shown to actually change the cause of death in many people that have diabetes, actually, it is a wonder.
Yeah, I didn't realize. I was reading the stats, Doc. 1 in 3 people with diabetes also have chronic kidney disease. So it's very, very common. Is this the kind of drug that, everyone with diabetes should try to get on?
Well, you have to take this with a grain of salt. The study also said, at the end that all of these other people were also on other medications, including Ozempic. Now, there was an arm where they didn't have Ozempic at all. So the question is going to be, where does this fit in sort of the quiver, of what we use, of the arrows that we use to treat diabetes? Because right now, Ozempic and this type of medication is not the first line of medications. We start with different ones. And then somewhere down the line, if things don't work, we put on Ozempic. Now, the question is, are we going to start using this earlier because we know it has greater benefits?
In terms of the weight loss issue, Doc, what do you think about using Ozempic for weight loss? Because I know all these people, they need to lose 10, 15 pounds. And instead of doing it the hard way, and I'm not talking like really obese people, I'm just talking people that have a belly or whatever. And instead of, exercising, they go and they get Ozempic. And they lose all this weight. And sometimes they get so skinny, it's almost freaky. They get too skinny. What do you think about it for weight loss in those situations?
All right. Well, first of all, the branding of Ozempic for weight loss is called Wegovy. It's neither here nor there because it's the same thing. And I think that what you are alluding to is correct. I think there is a lot of abuse of this drug for people that have minor amount of weight gain, a little bit overweight. The actual recommendations for this type of medication for weight loss is people have to have a BMI, which is a basal mass index of greater than 27. Your doctor can tell you what that means. And you have to have at least 1 or 2 criteria for heart disease. So I agree with you. And I think it's overused in a certain segment of the population. We don't know the long-term side effects of this. A lot of people that have been on it, you're right, they look disfigured. And we know that these medications lose certain muscle that you're not going to regain. So yeah, you end up, a lot of people end up looking freaky. And it's hard to tell them that because they're so into the fact that they've lost weight. So this is a double-edged sword. I mean, I think I talked to Chris about this a couple of years ago, and the fact that we don't know the long-term side effects. The original studies were just like a year, in length. So be careful, with anything that is a wonder drug.
Yeah, it's good advice. And the Ozempic face, I mean, it's real. You see some of these celebrities, even people that I know. I mean, I think they either take too much or just lose a little bit of weight, but they get that Ozempic face. They look so freaky. So it's good advice. We don't know exactly how it'll all pan out. Dr. Jorge Rodriguez, thank you so much for coming on. I hope you have a good holiday weekend.
My pleasure. Have a safe weekend.
Okay, coming up next, it is graduation season. This is my favorite story of the night. Graduation right around the corner, but the graduate I'm about to introduce you to after the break is unlike any other you know. You want to know why? She's an 11-year-old, and she's a college graduate. Can you believe that? Look at her. She's going to join me live next. In the middle of graduation season, but our next guest is unlike anyone you have seen with a college degree. Why, you ask? Well, she's only 11 years old. She just graduated cum laude from Irvine Valley College in California. Athena Elling is the school's youngest grad ever. And get this, she beat the record by 6 months, which was held by her 12-year-old brother. Athena joins us live now with her mom, Christina. Man, this is so cool. This is awesome, Athena. Tell me, first of all, congratulations. Is this something you always wanted to do, Athena? Where did you get the motivation to go to college so young?
Thank you. Yes. So I really wanted to go to college young because my brother really loved math. And for the online trial we were going to, they suggested community college. And when he wanted to go to a 4-year university, he had to finish his associate's degree, and he was the youngest person to do it. So after he did it, I really wanted to get an associate's degree as well. And by then, I was already in community college because I chased him all the way into calculus.
So there's a little competitiveness to it here. What do you want to do, Athena, after this? I mean, do you know what you want to do when you grow up yet?
I really want to be an actress. I don't really know what I'm going to do after this. I know that I don't want to go to like a 4-year university yet. I think I want to get another associate's degree, maybe in like theater or music or psychology.
Oh my gosh, another associate's degree. Well, you got plenty of time. I mean, you're only 11. Christina, Mom, I see you shaking your head there. I got to ask you, I mean, so you've got your older son who's 12, who has already graduated with an associate's degree. And then Athena's younger sister is also already in college. I mean, I was like playing with Legos at this age. I think so many moms and dads are watching this like, how did she do it? How did this mom pull this off?
Yeah, so I really didn't. And to be fair, they play with Lego a lot. I mean, like those things are like caltrops and you like step on them and they're everywhere. I think that, you know, like any parent, there's good days and bad days. This has kind of been an amazing week. But, you know, I think for Tycho and Zora, they super, super love math. And so they like had that one passion. And Athena's just always been hungry and competitive. She's always kind of, you know, it really was as soon as she knew she was getting her associates, she asked me to figure out if they could waive the credit limit since she's also a high school student. And so she's limited by credits. And so she is now officially going to be registered at 2 community colleges because she's serious about like the more associates things. She wants to get like 2 or 3 more to explore.
Wow. It's really something. We only have a few seconds left, Athena. What do you want to do next? I mean, so you're going to go and get another associate's? Is that your plan? Because I know you also do Taekwondo. You seem a very busy young woman.
Yeah, I definitely want to get another associate's degree. With the Taekwondo thing, I am actually a 2nd degree black belt in Taekwondo, and I also really like dancing and singing and acting. I also have many pets. I have 2 chinchillas, 9 chickens, and 4 goldfish.